and welcome to Storyboard. This is Shibani Gharat, and in this episode of Storyboard, we speak to Gabe Greenberg, CEO and co-founder of GapCon. GapCon is a global audience-based buying conference and consultancy. In this role, Gabe and his team are actively changing the face of audience-based buying by bringing in standards, content and education to the industry by delivering audience-based buying consulting. In this conversation that he had with us, he admits that profitability is crucial, but privacy is important and we cannot continue to abuse it. Let's take a look at this chat to find out more.
Gabe, thank you for talking to us. So, the elephant in the room, when you put it on the table, privacy versus profitability. You know, there are tons of data flying around.
Yeah, it's a pretty major issue today. Tim Cook just spoke out on the issue about a week ago at their developers conference. The question as to whether or not privacy and profitability can coexist and whether or not privacy in fact is a human right. And Tim Cook had said at the developers conference that it absolutely is a human right, and I tend to agree. It's interesting, our company name has audience-based buying in it.
Right.
So people say to me, how can you embrace the concept of privacy as a human right, and still think about this concept of privacy? And the way we explain it to them is that, you know, just because consumers have the opportunity to disclose their data doesn't mean that it should be that right should be abused. Right. So consumers should absolutely have a right to privacy. And we absolutely can live in a world where privacy and profitability can coexist.
Right. Now, the trouble is that a lot of us, if I make myself a consumer, there's a data trail I'm leaving behind.
Right.
And I didn't know that somebody's going to misuse it. I didn't even know somebody could misuse it.
Yeah.
That is the problem. So now, when you've got this new paradigm, you've got GDPR and stuff like that, then how does the consumer know what is fair use of data, what is not fair use of data? How do you navigate that world?
I think that's the biggest problem today, at least as it relates to consumers' expectations. Consumers generally don't have a real good sense as to what they're signing up for. They tick a box on the terms and conditions, and their data is being leveraged in many different ways, as you know, in the industry. We envision a world moving forward where consumers should have more control of the context in which their data is being used. And in fact, it should probably never even leave their device. And in that use case, in that world, I think consumers have to be less concerned about how their data is being abused and how it's being used, because they'll completely control it.
If I propose to you that the consumer will never be educated enough to make the right decision on this, the onus goes back on the CEOs of the marketing companies. Whose responsibility? Is it the publisher, or the people who are actually gathering the data, the Facebooks and the Googles of the world? Is it the CEO of the marketing company, or is it law?
Well,
where does that go?
I think regulation can generally be a good thing if it's set properly. I generally believe that GDPR, or the spirit of GDPR, was a good thing, because I think we've gotten too far.
You said was a good thing.
It is, I'm sorry, a good thing, because we've abused consumer rights. But I also genuinely believe that we shouldn't have to rely on or wait for regulation. Your question is, I think us as marketers, whether it's the publisher or whether it's the head of technology at a large ad tech company or publisher, needs to be more aware, and they need to be embracing new technologies that allow consumers to have more choice and more control. And when I say more choice and more control, that's not saying that, as you said, the average consumer will not have a sense for, what is a digital wallet and how do I control context. Most consumers don't know, and many don't care. But at least if we know that consumers have the ability to control it, and as a CEO, CMO, CTO, we are mindful of the fact that if we want to continue to have a thriving and plentiful business, we absolutely have to be wary and aware that privacy is important and we cannot continue to abuse it. Audience-based buying is something we can continue to do, but we absolutely have to preserve privacy and think about it as I do and Tim Cook said from Apple, which is privacy is a human right. And if you start your discussions within your own organizations with that mindset, I think everything in terms of the paradigm will shift.
Right. That leads to another very important word in the brand domain today, which is trust.
Yes.
So, which you've spoken about as well. So,
Yep.
let's understand how privacy, profitability, and trust go hand in hand. What happens if you're what do you have to do to be a more trusted brand in this new world?
Well, I think today the biggest issue is that incentives are misaligned, and that's really eroded the trust. So I think for a brand to be more trusted, they have to be more transparent. Transparent in every sense, not transparent in telling the industry or consumers what they're doing, but then doing other things behind the scenes,
right.
In other parts of their business. Transparent in every way they conduct their business. And you absolutely can do that and can continue to be profitable. There are some amazing new technologies coming out in the way of blockchain that can help companies solve for these issues and be as profitable as they are today, perhaps more profitable, but really use this new technology to their advantage, preserve that privacy, build the trust that's been eroded, and completely change the paradigm.
Right. So, rather than have it as a theoretical conversation, can you give me a few examples of companies who are doing well on this privacy profitability conflict?
Companies that are doing well?
Handling it well, and you believe are doing the right thing?
Well, I think the poster child for privacy, at least in the ad tech industry, for some time has been Apple.
Right.
Tim Cook has said, and before Tim Cook, Steve Jobs has said, when it comes to privacy, tell consumers what you're doing, tell them again and again and again, and if they're not sure, tell them yet again. So Apple is certainly a company that's been on the leading edge with regards to trust and transparency. I don't think there are any consumers that you'd survey or poll that would say they don't trust Apple as a brand.
Now, if as a marketer I invest in building trust and transparency and so on, these are long-term benefits in a world of short-termism. So how do you balance that? I'm looking at this quarter and the next quarter, and I misuse some data here and there. I get my numbers up.
For sure, and I think that is a fundamental problem. I sat on I've sat in the marketer seat myself, and I've faced those same challenges. And I think these are hard discussions to have inside of a marketing organization, but you have to have them with your CFO and your CEO, and you have to explain that while short term we may need to pivot to change, the change is for good, and longer term we will see the impact of revenue, a positive impact on revenue. And so while in the near term you may not see the same increases, and you may have to shift to more context or content until you can get the scale of data the way we have it today back and right, that's fine. Let's do the right thing by the industry and heal the industry today, which I think is completely wrought with broken trust, and candidly, it's in need of change.
It is time for us to take a short break. On the other side of this break, this conversation will continue. You don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.